Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Lucy Superfox Show. My name is Lucy Superfox, and this is my podcast. So on today's episode, we are going to dive into breaking the cycle of emotional eating and ending it for good, breaking into why you overeat, why sometimes you undereat, and ultimately what you're most interested in, how to stop it, and finally find freedom with food in 2026. Without further ado, let's dive in. It would be remiss of me to not acknowledge that this time of year is very much about celebration. It's about pleasure. It's about enjoyment. And a huge part of that is connected to food, to alcohol. And it's become like a cultural phenomenon, right? Like they have tubs of celebrations, which if you're not in the UK, are basically like a chocolate collection in the supermarkets from literally August. And because the nature, the rise of consumerism, the rise of people sharing what they're doing, the rise of social media and, the kind of the bigness of this time of year, what can happen is that we can get lost in that, and we can often become consumers of way more than just stuff and things, and actually become consumers of food simply because it's there, because it's what's expected of us, it's because it's the social occasion, or it's what everyone else is doing. And I think that the women I tend to attract to listen to this podcast, and sometimes guys too, but the people I tend to attract to listen to my work, what you most feel is this feeling like, oh, God, I should eat that, or I shouldn't eat that, or this is the wrong thing to do, or you're constantly feeling like this energy of shame or sabotage around food and can never find your flow and your freedom with it. And I was exactly the same until, and this is the key thing, until there was one magic moment where I really just felt this massive shift, where I sat down and I realized I'd not had a binge, and I was, diagnosed binge eater. I'd not had a binge for 3 months. And I remember going, oh my gosh, it just stopped. And so what I really just want to really empower you to know at the beginning of this episode is that change doesn't take time. Change happens in an instant, the moment that you change. And so knowing that, I want to really just empower you to know that finding freedom with food is something you can discover overnight, but it's not hiding where you think it is. So the first place that food freedom is not hiding is inside a diet. There is no flexibility, freedom, choice, and your ability to be autonomous with your decisions inside a strict regimen or a strict program. Now, don't get me wrong, if you're overweight right now or you feel unhealthy and you really want to support yourself in this next chapter, then as somebody who used to be a nutrition coach who regularly follows, a nutrition protocol or is really cares about what I eat, I understand the value of a meal plan. I understand the value of structured meals. I understand the value of measuring caloric intake, nutrient absorption. I'm all for it. But here's the thing. If right now your biggest driver and biggest problem is the lack of freedom around food and the fact that you flip between being over controlled to just feeling like a wild animal in a zoo, like outside of a zoo, right? It's just been let out from a zoo and it's like, give me everything. Then I'm here to tell you that strict meal plan and that strict regimen is not going to serve you. If you are going to find freedom with food where you choose when you want to eat something bad, I'm saying inverted commas, or you choose that you can have a slice of cake and it doesn't mean you need to eat the whole cake, or you can choose to just have one chocolate from the chocolate tin and be satisfied, you're not going to get there from having a strict regimen of what you can and can't do. The likelihood is you've already created so many rules for yourself about food and about alcohol and what's acceptable and what you should do and what's the right thing to do and what's the next thing to do, that ultimately you probably are lost inside your own mind around food as it is. You probably have a good list and a bad list, where today was a good day because I ate salad and fresh fruits and I had a shake for breakfast and I barely ate. Or you have a bad day, which means you had a biscuit or you went off plan or maybe you had a full-on food bender. But while we live in this narrative of food is good or food is bad, we keep ourselves stuck in this really polarizing behavior of I'm bad or I'm good or I'm right or I'm wrong. And look, the truth is, after being a root cause therapist now for well over a year and delivering hundreds of sessions this year, the belief about getting it wrong and that I am wrong shows up so much with food because food allows us to feel better. The chemicals that are released inside our body when we eat pleasurable tasting food, when we consume high amounts of sugar or we consume something like alcohol, the chemical transformation that happens, holy shit, it's addictive. It's so wildly addictive. But while we live in this world of food is right or food is wrong, we don't allow ourselves autonomous choice because we're saying to ourselves, we're either good or we're bad, we're right or we're wrong. And when we put ourselves in this black or white, all or nothing fixed mentality, what we don't allow ourselves is flexibility. And in lack of flexibility, there's no real choice. Real choice, real autonomy comes in when there are endless choices, and then we choose. And so the first step to choosing better, to making choices for yourself that serve you, that align with you. And remember, there is no right or wrong, because the person who goes out for a coffee and cake, who's recovering from anorexia, massive positive step. The person who's struggling with binge eating, who's overweight, who's obese, who's got, who's diabetic, who's struggling, going out for coffee and cake, probably not a good idea, right? And so this is why there is no universal right or wrong, bad or good. There is only what we choose and what we make it mean. And so I just want you to really dig into, is the food plan or a strict meal plan, is that serving you? Is that creating a sense of freedom? Because there's a difference between having a food plan that keeps you in shape, that keeps you on top form, like I kind of really informally follow. But there's no freedom if that's the thing you have to follow to be in shape and to not go off the rails. That's not freedom, that's control. And I think a lot of the time we confuse freedom and control. So do you want to be in control and control your whole life and manipulate and manage, or do you want to feel free? Because they're two different energies. And so when it comes to food freedom, the first step is you have to have choice. And this is why if I have clients that are wanting to go into the new year on some kind of strict protocol or strict meal plan, I'm like, I probably wouldn't. Because if you want to emotionally shift, the real reason you emotionally eat, right? Like we all know that eating salad and nutritious food is probably better for you, going to serve you better, greens and healthy foods than necessarily eating a box of miniature heroes, right? But it's not called logical eating, it's called emotional eating. So if you want to get to the root cause of the emotions driving the behavior around food, you have to allow yourself for food not to be the focus and the emotions to be the focus. Because whilst you continually make food the focus, you're ignoring the fact that there are emotions driving those behaviors. So let's look at those emotions driving the behaviors. Number 2, the emotions that drive our behaviors are programmed. The emotions driving your food behaviors are not emotions from today. They're emotional triggers that you've probably had year on year, month on month, week on week, day on day, your whole life. Probably the first time you scraped your knee, your mum made you a cup of tea and gave you a biscuit. Or actually when your parents were always busy and out, you found yourself raiding the cupboards. Or when your parents were arguing, they'd always give you, a cup of tea and a piece of toast. And so what happens is we create these, sometimes we call them coping strategies, soothing mechanisms, but ultimately we create behaviors that make us feel better. And there's nothing wrong with those behaviors inherently. And this is what's really important to understand. It's not the behavior. It's the driving energy behind the behavior. So what are the emotions driving the eating? I had this one client last year and she came to me specifically for emotional eating, specific implied root cause therapy. And she had such a magical transformation in just a few sessions. It was just so amazing to see. And she's like 20 kilos down. She's on a massive win. And she said to me, what I realized was, I asked her to keep an emotions diary of what was driving the food. And she said, what I realized was that no matter what emotion came up, I was thinking about food. Whether I was feeling happy, whether I was feeling sad, whether I was feeling angry, whether I was feeling frustrated, whether I was feeling confused, I would want food. And she said, what I also realized was that no matter what food I ate, no matter how much of it I ate, the emotions were always there afterwards. And so that realization for her is what allowed her to feel free with food, so that food was only then food. It was like, oh yeah, I'm going to eat some more nourishing foods today because I don't feel well, or I'm going to get some more protein in because I had a hard workout. Like she has real choice now because she's not focused on the food and she's focused on the emotions. So first step, looking at the emotions that are driving the behavior. And for some of us, it is only when we feel sad or panicked or shook. But for some of us, it's everything. For me, it was everything. It was this feeling of uncertainty. I had this chronic feeling which I now know to be unsafety, that just ran in my veins. I was always worried, anxious, overthinking, planning, ruminating, managing, controlling. And my nervous system was constantly in this activated fight or flight state. Of course I wanted to eat all the time. Of course I wanted an alcoholic drink. Of course I wanted to escape. Because I wanted to escape this chronic sense of I'm not enoughness, or this chronic state of I'm not safe. And that's so hard to name when you don't know what that feels like. But if there is a chronic anxiety running in your veins that's driving your emotions or behaviors with food, that has nothing to do with food and everything to do with the energies of feeling unsafe inside your body. This is where doing the work to heal the root cause, right? Get to the root of what is driving that anxiety. What's the belief? What's the experience? What's the loop that your body could not close, that it needs to close in order to go to that next level? So this is where, when we do the deep work, we transform everything, because we're not then reacting and responding to emotions. We're actually navigating our emotions. We're feeling into them. We're going, oh, that's interesting. That made me feel confused. Or that's interesting. That made me worry. Why did I do that? And even if you then still choose to have the chocolate or choose to have the cake, it's about choice. But whilst these programs of emotions are running on autopilot, guys, and I've talked about this so much, we are 95% programmed. Your subconscious mind and your unconscious inside your body, so the fascia and the wisdom that runs inside your body, the subconscious programming, that runs without you even thinking. You breathe without thinking. You eat without thinking. It's why you can find yourself 5 biscuits deep and go, how the fuck did I get there, right? Because it's running on autopilot. Your body remembers what it thinks is useful. What you've done over and over and over on repeat, your body remembers. And so I just want to really urge you to witness, it's not about the food. The problem isn't outside of you. The thing that needs to be fixed isn't outside of you, it's inside of you. It's the emotions driving the show. It's the beliefs and the state of your nervous system that is driving those emotions. So when we get to the root, that is when we shift it all. And the third thing, and I think this is the one that sometimes is overlooked, and this is why in the Heal Masterclass that myself and my gorgeous friend Sarah are running on the 1st of January 2026, or you can get the replay and you can grab it at lucysuperfox.com/heal, is the impact of addiction. And, you know, Sarah is the whiz on this, and I'm not going to dive into it too much, but what chemically happens inside your body when you create patterns and programs becomes addictive. Not only do you release a ton of neurotransmitters, chemicals, hormones that create and sync in a certain pattern, so you get those reward chemicals, you get that lift, you get that rush, you get that vibe, right? Which just feels amazing in its first place. The buzz off a glass of wine, right? The come down off scrolling on social media, the shutdown of your mind. Not only does that release that massive chemical storm that makes you feel different, right? Because if you're feeling any emotion and you're reaching outside of yourself, what you're actually reaching for is to feel different. You think to feel better, but really just to feel different. So when we have these behaviors, we're getting that chemical storm that really drives this. When that chemical storm starts to take over, that's when it becomes an addiction. That's when it becomes something bigger than us, when it becomes something bigger than what we can feel and see and understand. But if you look into the root cause of addiction and you work into what drives addiction in so many people, it's nervous system dysregulation. It's unsafety inside the body. It's trauma. The studies and studies and studies show that when addiction is present, so is trauma. When a body feels unsafe, it reaches outside of itself to feel different. And it finds a reliable chemical source that, you know, gives it that chronic state of or that chronic state of up. We're going to reach for it every single time. You can be addicted to work. You can be addicted to sex. You can be addicted to love. You can be addicted to scrolling on Instagram. You can be addicted to running. You can be addicted to working out. You can be addicted to anything. But while you're regulating yourself on the outside of your life, you're living a life that isn't yours. You're living a life on autopilot. You're not living a life by design or by choice. And there is certainly no freedom. But this is where doing the work to help reset and restore the body, to nourish the body, to allow it to feel supported is what can sometimes create enough room between you and the thing. And on last week's podcast, right, we talked about the gap. To create enough room between you and the behavior, to create the gap between who you were before and who you really want to be. But that comes with having the awareness of the fact that the emotions are driving the show. Now, look, for some of you, you will be like me, and this has been a more new thing, is when I'm feeling heavy emotions, I can't eat. It's like there's not space to process what's happening emotionally and consume food. It's like my body doesn't have enough room inside the vessel to process and digest food. And, you know, chemically, this is a real thing, right? When you're in a chronic fight or flight state, in the activated state, your body will shut down digestion. It does not think about digesting food when it thinks it's a saber-toothed tiger it needs to run away from. But when this becomes chronic, right, when we chronically undereat or overeat because we're in this chronic activated state, what happens is our body stops absorbing nutrients. Then we start to feel tired. Then we reach for the caffeine. Our bacteria is allowed to then grow in our intestines, and then we start to experience gut symptoms. Hormones aren't made properly because the body doesn't go into rest and digest and repair mode. And then we start to see this cascade of physiological symptoms that show up because emotions were driving the show. This is where, unless you are going to get to the root cause of what is making you feel so unsafe inside your body that you need the food, or what's making you feel or drive these emotions that feel so just strange to you or not like yours or chronically feel overwhelming, unless you're going to get to the bottom of that, food freedom is probably going to elude you. And I hate to be the one to tell you that, but I tell you that because I spent years and years of my life and thousands of pounds on trying to find the right diet or the right approach or the thing that was going to work. And you know what fucking worked? Getting to the root of what was driving my behaviors, what was driving those emotions, what was creating that energy state inside of me. And it was me doing the deep work to heal my trauma. It was doing the work to get to why I was behaving in that way rather than focusing on what I needed to do different. Because when you've got 95% of you that's programmed in one direction, you've got 95% fighting 5%. And when of that 95%, so much of that is unconscious trauma, unhealed experiences, and unprocessed emotions, they will continually show up every single time. And you will drop right back into those patterns and grooves to allow you to feel different. That biscuit, that cup of tea, that glass of wine, especially when life gets hard. But if food freedom is the thing that you are craving, seeking, needing, desperately wanting so that you can actually live your life and not be consumed by food, not think about every menu, not count every calorie, and actually have that autonomous choice, then you've got to get to the root cause of the relationship you've had with food this whole time. And this is exactly what we're going to be talking about inside the Heal Masterclass. So you can join us live on the 1st of the 1st at 11 a.m. by going to lucysuperfox.com/heal. You'll register, but you'll also get access to the replay. And on that replay, you are going to get the exact steps that you need to heal your relationship with food and how to move through 2026 with an energy of freedom. So I hope this landed. I hope it resonated. I hope it supported and served. Please, as always, like, subscribe, share. Please leave me a comment. Let me know what you thought. If there's anything else that you would love to hear from me on, and I'll see you on the next episode.